Hi, y'all, and welcome to this week's edition of Ask a Witch. And this is probably going to be a little bit longer than our usual ones because it's kind of a complicated subject. Now, of course, I got disclaimers. Number one, I don't go back and edit my videos. You're not going to see a lot of flash or fancy intros or outros or anything like that. What you get is me sitting here talking to you like I'd talk to a friend about a subject. And another thing is that this is my opinion. And there's a few things I'll tell you about my opinion. Number one, not everybody shares it. Not every witch shares it. And I don't expect them to. Number two, this is going to sound, I don't mean this to sound ugly or hateful or anything, but I don't need somebody to agree with me in order for my opinion to be valid. So it's valid to me. I don't feel a need to defend it at all. So if another person disagrees with my opinion, that's fine. I'm not threatened by that. It doesn't bother me at all. If it bothers them, then I'm real sorry to hear that. So I say that because this can be a real sensitive subject that we're going to discuss, and it's sensitive depending on the direction you're coming from with it. So, gosh, my nose just itches like mad today. My mama used to say that means somebody's thinking about me. So, the question today that came into my purview over the week is, what is witchcraft? So I want to go into a few different aspects of that question. And again, this is just my practice, my opinion. And I've been identified as a witch for more than 40 years. And that's a big part of what witchcraft is. So look at the word itself, witchcraft. Now, when we think about craft, we think about doing something with our hands. We think about arts and crafts, which means craft making. If we're going to craft the perfect speech, we are writing out the perfect speech. So crafting is usually making something or creating something with your hands. Which, on the other hand, is an identification. Now, first of all, I want to dispel one thing that's kind of out there that a lot of people believe is not true. Witchcraft and that's not a religion. It, honest to God, doesn't have anything to do with religion. It is a practice, which is different than a religion. There are lots of religions that identify within the umbrella of witchcraft, like Wicca, for instance, but witchcraft itself does not require any particular religious identification other than just being a witch. There are a lot of different kinds of witchcraft that fall under that umbrella. There's ceremonial witchcraft, which is practiced in rituals and is a little bit more, um, it's less spontaneous. It's more scripted and directly um, crafted for the veneration of a circumstance or season or a particular god or god, something along those lines. So there's also folk magic, which a lot of people associate with witchcraft and have called witchcraft, but folk magic is something that's its own entity, it's its own thing. Now, there are a lot of witches who practice folk magic or folk healing, and when they do it, you could call it witchcraft. But there are a lot of folk healers who, if you look at what they're doing something that looks and sounds exactly like witchcraft, but it's not. And why is that? Because that person does not identify as a witch. So that's the first part of the word. In order to be practicing witchcraft, and for this particular thing, I'm going to say I don't care what anybody else says, especially people who are not witches. In order to practice witchcraft, you have to identify as a witch, even if it's self-identifying as a witch. Somebody from the outside doesn't get to point their finger and shake and go, they're practicing witchcraft. Well, it's not one of those if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck thing. You have to identify as a witch. Now, all through history, witchcraft has been associated with all kinds of stuff, everything from midwifery to astrology, palm reading, divination of any kind. All of those have been considered to be witchcraft. But in our enlightened 21st century mentality and culture, There are lots of astrologers who are not witches. There are palmists who are not witches. There are plenty of midwives who are not witches. So, just like we no longer usually put leeches on people to heal them anymore, and we don't do bloodletting. So, in this enlightened century, you can be a witch and not ever practice any kind of magic, any kind of spell work. You can be a Wiccan and identify as a witch. You can be a folk magic practitioner and identify as a witch or not identify as a witch. You can be a healer and not be a witch. So, the way that scrambled brains thought in past centuries should not be carried forward into our modern and hopefully wiser definitions. So, in this day and time, what witchcraft actually is the crafting or the work done by a witch. Now, that could be the crafting of a ritual, that could be the crafting of a veneration, that could be the crafting of a grimoire that they're putting together and making by hand. That could be the actual spell work that you do with a candle or with a mirror box or a honey jar, or whatever you happen to be doing. Witchcraft is the practice with or something you're doing with your hands to create a specific outcome. Now, sometimes that outcome might be I need me a new wand. And so you go out and you get some ash or some hazel or even some hickory and you start, sanding it down and making it nice and smooth the way you want. You get the copper wire to go around it to direct the energy. You get the crystal at the end, whatever you happen to be doing, and you're crafting that toward a particular outcome, which is I want to have a powerful wand that I can use. You might be writing a letter to somebody, and your thought is, I really want to put energy toward them understanding what I'm saying. I have something important I want to say, and I want all the obstacles to good communication to be gone. I want them to hear me. I want them to hear the heart of what I'm saying. And your witchcraft can go right into that ink as you're writing a letter. Now, does that mean every time you write a letter, you're practicing witchcraft? It does not. It has to be done with intention, and it has to have a predicted outcome that you're looking to achieve in some way. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, is that you first must identify as a witch, not someone else identifying you, but you identifying yourself as a witch. And next, you have to be creating something with your hands and your thoughts to create an outcome of some kind. And that's to me what witchcraft is. Um, Back in the olden days, that might be, making a cow not milk because you're mad at so and so down the road, or it might be, putting your hands on them and saying certain words or breathing in a certain way to heal a burn on their child's arm. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that witchcraft comes into being and has over the years. But how we identify witchcraft right now, I think, is important. There was a time when we were asked to disenfranchise ourselves from the word witch. I would say back in the early 80s, we went through a time where people said, why word? It's got such an ugly association with it now. And it was actually Laurie Cabot who said, the word witch is a beautiful, delicious word. And that caused a lot of us to just grab onto it and say, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to keep my witch word. I'm going to hang on to that one. But yourself, if you're at the family reunion or you're, going to any type of gathering and you say, oh, and I'm a witch, you're going to get a lot of different responses depending on your audience and where you are. So you have to decide how you identify. There's some people that are going to be in the broom closet, some that are not. There's sometimes going to be places where you're in the broom closet at work and not at home. So you've got to figure out how you're going to be in the world. But that's my definition of witchcraft. I have to say that it's somebody identifying as a witch who's doing a particular procedure or activity with a structured outcome. Here's the trick. You got an outcome in mind. That might not be what happens, But usually, if you've got your little codicil on your work of this or for the greatest good or this or better, you're going to be safe. Witchcraft is never a place to be entered into with fear. It's a place you can go into with respect for the powers that you're working with. You're using natural energy. And that's what's important is people think of witchcraft as something supernatural. It's supernatural in the sense that it is the most natural thing that you can do. Witchcraft is embodying and channeling the natural energies that exist on this world. Now, if I was to go into a church, which I believe me, I spend a lot of time in churches, and tell one of those people of the altar and hold their beads and pray and pray and pray and pray for something to happen, that they're doing witchcraft, they're going to probably be offended. If I look at a pagan and say, you know what, when you go to your patron god or goddess and you speak to them and tell them what you want and what you need, you're praying. You know what? They might not like that word prayer because they've been wounded by the Christian church at some point. Everybody gets to choose their own words. And that's the beauty of what we call witchcraft. Everybody gets to identify. You get to decide your labels. You get to pick. Nobody picks that for you. Even if you only pick it in your heart of hearts, you pick it. And if what you do and practice feels like witchcraft to you, if you're identifying as a witch and you're doing witchy things and creating your own outcomes, creating your own reality, then you get to claim that. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. If you aren't comfortable with that and you want to make things happen in your own way, in the tenets of your own religion or spiritual path, that's what you do too. And you don't get to have anybody else tell you, oh, that's witchcraft. Don't do that. It's not their business. And that's what I got to say about what is witchcraft. It is the craft of the witch, what the witch do. So I hope that's helpful to you or meaningful to you in some way. Again, feel free to, you're welcome to comment. I don't do the thing of begging people to subscribe and begging people to click the bell and begging people to do this and that. I don't monetize my stuff. I just say if you're here, maybe you were meant to be here. If you have a comment, go and leave a comment. But I tell you what, if you're going to argue, because I don't argue or defend what I say. What I believe is what I believe. I'll listen. I'll hear what everybody has to say, but it doesn't mean I'm going to sign off on yours or that I'm going to, try to defend mine. It just is what it is. So y'all take care. That's Ask a Witch for this week. Got a little bit more in depth than the usual. How do I burn a reversing candle? But that's my take on it. So y'all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.